That was scary. I was saying, and I checked. I turned around, and I was like, oh my gosh. She did something.
Alright, let's get the party started, guys. Come on, you gotta stand up. Gotta stand up. Do our traditional Energizer, Rocky music. Alright. Who was born a champion? Louise, you were born a champion. Jim, you were born a champion. Tap Mary on the shoulder and say you were born a champion. Alright. Give yourself a round of applause. Wasn't that fun? Alright. Welcome, welcome. We're getting started a little bit early tonight, but for those of us who join us, they can get caught up because, of course, we're recording it. So, as always, we send out the link, and if anybody needs a refresher, you can always watch it a second time. If those of you are watching on Facebook Live, all you have to do is rewind. But we're going to start these workshops a little bit earlier. Normally, we start them at 6. And we're going to start them at 5:45, and we're just going to get a jump on things. We're going to do that this month, we're going to do that next month, and all the months thereafter, Lord willing. So, tonight we have Heart Smart Nutrition. Raise your hand if you want to learn how to build a healthier heart. Say aye.
Aye.
Awesome. And that's tonight, but next month we have cancer prevention. So we know Heart Smart is a leading disease killer, and cancer prevention is really important because cancer is the second leading disease killer, and we know that. So between the two of them, we're talking about 5 out of 6 people who die from heart disease and cancer. And that's a big deal. And that's why it's so important to be at these workshops here in the fall. We've got Heart Smart tonight, we've got cancer next month, and then the month after that, diabetes. The 3 biggies, which are the most common comorbidities that people have been dying from COVID. So if we've learned anything from this whole epidemic, what has it exposed? How unhealthy we are as Americans. And all these conditions that we have, that we just take medications for, and we've got our blood sugar and our blood pressure under control and our cholesterol. Just because you take medications and you have these numbers under control, does that mean that we're healthy? No. If anything, COVID has shown us that, has exposed that flawed thinking. There's a difference between having those numbers under control and actually being healthy. Is that making sense? So tonight we're gonna talk more about that. Now I don't really have to cover this with you guys, but every once in a while we'll have people come in and they'll sit there and talk on the phone in the middle of our workshop, and you guys are looking at them like, hello? There's an event going on. Or they'll just hop up and then there's a line going to the restroom. And so I figured, you know what, it's probably a good idea that we, air out our dirty laundry and do some housekeeping and say, okay, as teachers, you guys know, the hardest thing it is to do is to get people to focus, right?
Yeah, that's true.
When you have students, it's hard enough to get people to stay awake, let alone distract other people. So I appreciate your uncommon courtesy, because common courtesy today is just not all that common. Kind of like common sense. Not all that common, right? So I just want to get that out of the way. So let's talk about heart disease. In the United States, it's the leading disease killer. It's a million lives a year. It's 1 person every 30 seconds that dies from heart disease. Women are more at risk because if you're a woman, 42% of women who've had a heart attack die within a year compared to only 24% of men. Did you know that? If you're under age 50 as a woman, your heart attacks are twice as likely to kill you as opposed to being a man. So especially if you're a woman, you need to pay attention to this. There's 3 times more people dying from heart disease now than there was in the 1930s. Now, as time goes on and we spend more money on healthcare, we should be taking less medications, we should be having healthier people, but that's not really the case. So you see that picture below? What do you see? You see a physician talking with a patient. that patient, I want you to imagine, is you. And you go to the doctor every single year, and your doctor sits across from you and reads you your blood tests. Generally, what do they say? This looks good, this looks good, this looks good. Carlos, I don't like the way this looks. You're going to need to start taking this. I'm going to write your prescription for this, and you're going to go and fill it. And then you're going to do one of two things. You're going to say, okay. Or you're going to say, Doc, I'm not sure. Let me think about it. And I have heard other things, I've learned other things, and I want to consider it. And you want to sound intelligent when you have that conversation with them. And tonight, if you pay attention, if you listen carefully and closely, and you understand these concepts, you will, without fear, without anxiety, without trepidation, have no problem objecting if you believe it's the right thing to do. And my purpose for you tonight is to show you and kind of enlarge your scope of thinking so that you can have an intelligent conversation with your doctor. And many of you have been to these workshops many times before. And I still continue to get these questions because of the fear. Because it's ingrained within us. We were born into a medicine chest, and we were born to worship at the altar of the medical doctor. So, if you listen carefully tonight, I'm going to show you how to think differently and how to have a spirit of courage, and that comes from knowledge. And that's what we're going to talk about. So I'm going to ask you questions as we go through this. Why? Because if I hear answers, then I know that what's happening. You're thinking, yeah. And if you think differently, you're going to get different results, right? Because if you think you're going to get different results with the same thinking, what is that called? Insanity, right? And I know none of you in here are insane. You're highly intelligent people. Or some borderline, yeah, maybe. But that wasn't from me. So let's talk about some myths here. This is where our flawed thinking comes in. Lowering your cholesterol to very low levels, what does that say? Does not reduce your risk of heart disease. And recent cholesterol drug studies show that if you do reduce your cholesterol, the lower you reduce your cholesterol, the higher it increases your risk of what? Other health problems. So this goes back to the question that I always keep getting. What can I do to bring my cholesterol down naturally? And I'm going to circle back to that in a minute. First, we have to get past the objection, is cholesterol bad? How many of you guys have heard that, when you hear that LDL, or you hear that cholesterol word, it's just got a bad insinuation. It's almost like the word cancer. When you hear cholesterol, you automatically think negative. You think bad. But your body was fearfully and wonderfully created. Who made your body? God did. Does God make junk? No. And so what you have as far as cholesterol is what makes up 25% of your brain. Every cell in your body, I've got plenty of room up front here, Vianney. Do not think about touching that chair. You're coming right up front. You're in the soap and shower section. Come on.
I didn't know.
Yeah. Yes. So nice to see you. Okay. So think about this, okay? Think about this. Every cell in your body, every cell membrane is made up of cholesterol. So if the cells are made up of cholesterol, then there has to be something good about that, right? So cholesterol happens to be a critical brain nutrient and a what? Antioxidant. Does that sound bad or good? Antioxidants? Antioxidants. What do we need antioxidants for? Vitamin A, C, E. They tell you to take antioxidants for what? To prevent cancer. What else? It kills free radicals, prevents oxidation, inflammation, cancer. Very, very important, right? So when we talk about the neurons in your brain, how well do you want these neurons functioning? You want them firing on all cylinders, yes or yes? So neurons in your brain rely on something called LDL. The neurons in your brain, in order to fire, to work properly, they rely on cholesterol. Did you get that? You got that? Okay, so that cholesterol is important for you to think clearly, normally, for as long as possible. And LDL, by the way, is not cholesterol. I know that you've been told that LDL is the bad cholesterol, and then you have good cholesterol, the HDL, the high density lipoprotein, LDL, hi Michelle, low density lipoprotein. What is lipoprotein? It's not a cholesterol, it's a protein. So it's really a carrier molecule, it's a shuttle to take what the neurons need from the bloodstream to nourish the neurons in your brain so that they can fire and you can think properly. How many of you guys think that's a good idea? That you can think properly? Yeah. Hello. Yeah, so LDL is not a cholesterol. It's a low density lipoprotein. So ultimately there's nothing bad about LDL, even though that we've been taught that. The fundamental role of LDL in the brain is to what? Capture life-giving cholesterol and transmit it to the where? Neuron, where it performs critically important functions. So cholesterol is critical for your brain to work properly. So is cholesterol bad? No. So what happens to all these benefits as a result of lowering your cholesterol? It diminishes. You're losing out on this. Does your brain function better or not as well when you lower all those functions? When you reduce the cholesterol, when you're reducing the LDL, what you're going to learn tonight is your brain does not work as well. Framingham follow-up study. This is total cholesterol. They looked at that person's total cholesterol and cognitive performance. What's cognitive performance? How well you what? How well you think. How well you score on these tests. And they measured those tests and all those elements compared to people with Alzheimer's disease and all those elements, which I'm going to show you in a minute. They looked at 789 men and 1,105 women. The cognitive tests were performed every 4 to 6 weeks, evaluating memory, learning, concept formation, concentration, attention, abstract reasoning, and organizational abilities. All of the features that were compromised in patients with what? Alzheimer's disease. And here's what they found. The participants with total cholesterol less than 200 performed less well than the participants with the higher cholesterol. Now, you guys know where your cholesterol is, and you also know when your doctor voiced their concern because it was over 200, over 220, over 240, and what is this showing? That the people who had those cholesterol numbers at 220 and 240 scored the highest on the tests, the cognitive tests. Wow. That's interesting. Okay. So Parkinson's disease, another study showing the correlation with people with low cholesterol and more neurodegenerative disorders. Researchers in the Netherlands demonstrated that high blood levels of total cholesterol associated with a significantly decreased risk of Parkinson's disease. I'm going to say that again. Highest cholesterol levels, lowest risk of what? Parkinson's disease. People with the lowest LDL, the bad cholesterol, were at an increased risk for Parkinson's disease by approximately how much? 350%. So, it's up to you. If you're concerned about your cholesterol and you take action and you want to push those LDL levels as low as possible, there's plenty of ways to do that. You can do that with supplements, you can do that with medications, but is that really what you want? No. And particularly if you see that it actually increases your risk of Alzheimer's disease, Parkinson's disorders, and numerous other health problems, just to start with. So here's a good question. What can I take to lower my cholesterol naturally? Any answers on that? Any takers?
You don't want to.
You don't want to? What's wrong with you? Are you serious? What kind of answer is that? What can I take to lower my cholesterol naturally? Who here would like to learn what to do to lower your cholesterol naturally? I see some of you. Look. No, I would like to lower. No, I'm not sure. Okay, so let's have some fun with this. Let's have some fun because this is how ingrained and brainwashed we are. All right. Okay, so this is one of the most common questions I get. I don't like my cholesterol levels where the doctors has concern. They want me to go on statins. I don't want to go on statins. What can I take to lower my cholesterol naturally? I heard this is good for it, that supplement's good for it. What do you recommend, Dr. Yachter? Well, let's think about this. We don't want to take statins to lower our cholesterol because it could increase our risk of Parkinson's, Alzheimer's disease, cognitive issues, right? We're stripping the cholesterol out of something that our brain needs. So I don't want to take statins to do that, but maybe I'll do it a different way. Let me just go ahead and take it down with a supplement and still increase my risk of neurodegenerative disorders. Does that sound like a good idea? No, you're still doing the same thing. Instead of with a pharmaceutical, you're doing it with a nutraceutical. What's the difference? We have to own the concept. Number one, bringing your cholesterol down to low levels is not a good idea. Whether you do it with a drug or whether you do it with a supplement. You got that? Now, this may be the first time that you're hearing it, but that's the reason why you're at the workshop, so I can walk you through the literature. Not my literature, the medical literature. The doctors that you're going to that are telling you to take your statin medications coming from their journals saying otherwise. Statin medications from the American Journal of Cardiology. Statins increase your risk of what? Death. That's what the word mortality means, death. Researchers followed nearly 300 adults diagnosed with heart failure for an average of 3.7 years, some cases up to 11 and a half years. Those who were taking statin drugs and had the lowest what? LDL were found to have the highest rates of mortality. What does that mean? They died the most frequently, right? Conversely, people with higher levels of cholesterol had the what? Lower risk of death. Give me the higher levels of cholesterol because I don't want to die early. Okay? Now, I'm going to show you where the risk comes in, and it's not the cholesterol. There's other things that you need to look for, and it's not the cholesterol. More reasons to avoid statin drugs. If you didn't know this, the FDA released a statement indicating that statin drugs could cause cognitive side effects, such as memory lapses and confusion. They deplete your body of CoQ10, which is an essential nutrient, a molecule that every cell in your body needs, not to mention your heart, in order to function properly. And many of the side effects that you're familiar with statin drugs, like memory loss, confusion, aches, pains, joint problems, disorientation, and things like that, comes from the statins stripping the CoQ10 out of your body. So that's why it's so important to have CoQ10 as a supplement. What else do statins do? They inhibit the production of K2. What is K2? That's a vitamin that you need along with vitamin D, right, to help prevent heart disease. And when you have a statin and you're stripping that out, that K2, what are you doing? You're increasing the risk of calcification of the arteries. Interesting, isn't it? A drug meant to prevent heart disease actually causing it. Cancer. Research shows that long-term statin use, 10 years or longer, more than doubles the risk. What does it do? Doubles the women's risk of breast cancer. Diabetes. Recent studies show that statins triple your risk of type 2 diabetes when taken for more than how long? 2 years. 2 years. So there's no such thing as a drug without an effect. They're not side effects, they're just effects. And the question is, if you are taking any of these right now, the big question that I'd be asking myself is, okay, well, how do I get off of this? The good news is that statins aren't like blood pressure medications or blood sugar medications where if you really have a condition and you stop taking that could be bad news. Statins aren't like that at all. I'm not one to tell people to stop taking medications. That's not what I'm supposed to be doing. But I can tell you, if today was your last day and you walked out of here and never took it again, there would be no side effects as long as you are addressing what the true cause of heart disease is. It's not the cholesterol. It's what you're doing to the cholesterol in your body. And I'm going to show you that. Cardiologist, Sean Malhotra, medical doctor in his British Parliament, distress call saying statins have no efficacy. Year after year, study after study, he said the most recent study, 12,000 patients at high risk of heart disease. They were taking precautions, whether it's statins or nutrition, to lower the cholesterol. They showed no reductions in heart attack, stroke, or death, despite a 37 reduction in LDL cholesterol. So we can take those medications, but it's not taking you out of the concern or the danger that your doctor may have for you. In the last 30 years, he said, there's now been 44 randomized controlled trials that have revealed no cardiovascular mortality benefit. In other words, people not living longer from diet or various drug trials from lowering cholesterol. Did you catch that? It doesn't matter if you use supplements, nutrition, or cholesterol drugs to bring your cholesterol down. It doesn't save lives. You don't live longer. There's no benefit from lowering your cholesterol. And who's this coming from? A cardiologist. Are you with me right now? But Dr. Yachter, what about my cholesterol if it's like 300? Isn't that dangerous? That's what we're trying to talk about tonight. That's what we're trying to get you comfortable with, understanding that it's not the cholesterol. It's what happens to the cholesterol. What we do to the cholesterol inside of our body, which turns it bad. Cholesterol in and of itself is not bad. Remember that? Cholesterol is good. It's necessary. It's a necessary molecule. What does it do? It nourishes the neurons. It's responsible for what makes up the cell membranes, for all the nutrients to enter a cell, for the cell function to occur properly. Everything has to revolve around the cell membrane and its functionality. And that's made of cholesterol. So cholesterol in itself is not bad. It's good, but it's what we do to turn it bad. So the Journal of the American Medical Association did a review of 1,000 participants in a 4-year Yale study. They said people with low total cholesterol have what? Just as many heart attacks as people with high total cholesterol. So it's not the cholesterol that we're looking at. The New England Journal of Medicine said that they found patients with the low CRP levels had fewer heart attacks no matter what their LDL cholesterol was, and they had more heart attacks if their CRP was elevated, regardless of their LDL cholesterol. So what they started doing, this was almost 2 decades ago, again, published in a peer-reviewed medical journal, they started looking at not cholesterol as the imminent predictor of a heart attack or heart disease. They started looking at C-reactive protein. What did I say? C-reactive protein, known as CRP or HSCRP. So the question that you need to ask your doctor if they say, I don't like where your cholesterol is, it's too high, I don't like where your LDL is, you need a statin, what should be your question? What's my CRP? Why? Because the inflammation marker is the better predictor of a heart condition or a heart attack, not cholesterol. The inflammation marker. Are you guys with me so far? Okay. So when they do a typical blood test for you or I, they're going to come out with everything on that: your vitamin D, your vitamin C, your typical complete blood profile. Most of the time they have that on there, but most of the time they do not have the CRP unless you specifically ask for it, and a lot of times you have to stand on your head. So what we did in our office, we found a place where that had a kit that we can order, and we have the kit in our office, and we take just a finger prick blood sample, we put it on a card, and we send it to a lab, and we have it back in 2 weeks. And the lab results will give us the C-reactive protein reading, and it will also give us a vitamin D reading, both of which are predictors of heart disease, and also cancer, and also how strong or how weak your immune system is. Both of these are really important markers. So what's the most important test to determine whether or not you're at risk for a heart condition? C-reactive protein. So this is what it looks like. That's basically the card that we use, and it'll tell us if you're in range or out of range. If you're out of range, then we can give you supplements to recommend to bring it back in range. And I'll circle back to that in just a little bit. So does that kind of help everybody in terms of their thinking as far as where we've come from with our thinking with cholesterol, and our focus has been all on the wrong thing? And I'm going to come back to now, again, what we need to look at to correct the cause of the problem. It's not the cholesterol. So with blood pressure, there's another issue with heart disease and all the problems that it can cause, from heart attack, stroke, aneurysm, kidney failure, problems with your eyes, memory loss, dementia. What is normal blood pressure? Where should our blood pressure be? What do we usually hear? 120 over 80. But isn't it true as we get older, our systolic tends to rise with age? So the Mayo Clinic, if you look, what you're really going to find, and you should find, if you're a healthy adult age 60 or older, your treatment goal should be 150 systolic or less, 150 over 90. Not necessarily 120 over 80, but 150 over 90, slightly elevated. Now, so from what you might have thought. But this is something for you to take note of as a form of reference. Obviously, everybody's a little bit different. But if your blood pressure is, 140 over 90, 130 over 90, that is not something to be concerned about. If you're a healthy individual, if you're exercising, if you're eating good, if you're taking care of yourself, and your blood pressure is in that range, that's your body adapting to where it's at age-wise. And your blood pressure needs to be at a certain place in order to get the nutrients and the oxygen out to the distal parts of the body. As you get older, your vessels and things get more brittle, and they don't expand and contract the way they used to. And so naturally, our blood pressure should be elevating to some degree as we get older. Does that make sense? Okay. So the typical course of treatment for high blood pressure or anything out of that range is going to be what? Medications. And many of these medications, some of you are still taking. A couple of years ago, they were recalled: valsartan, irbesartan, losartan. You've heard of these. What was it recalled for? Cancer-causing impurities in there, namely what they use in rocket fuel. Hello? And I remember going over this in the workshop a few years ago, and people were getting up out of their chairs, literally calling their doctor. And many of them, I alerted them to it before their doctor did. And their doctor was like, yeah, we need to take you off of that. I'm like, too late. Meanwhile, you have all these toxins that you've been ingesting for years. Not a good idea. Again, I always go back to, all right, so if you are taking medication, I understand that. We know that. Now, if there's something else that we can do instead, when should we start doing that? As soon as possible, There are side effects to these: shortness of breath, confusion, memory problems, vertigo, constipation, impotence, headaches, fatigue, insomnia. A lot of the conditions that people go and get help for tend to be side effects of medications that they're given for other conditions. Right or right?
Right.
So beta blockers, calcium channel blockers, did you know that it gives you an increased risk of having a heart attack or heart failure, 26% increased risk? Calcium channel blockers shrink the brain. Did you know that? Coumadin actually rips calcium out of your bones and dumps it into your coronary arteries. When you have calcification of the arteries, hello, is that a good thing? No. But when you're pulling calcium out of the bones, what does that contribute to? A different condition called what? Osteoporosis. Yeah. Increased risk of fractures, bone loss, joint replacements it can increase your risk of. But meanwhile, you're taking it for a heart condition, and it could be causing another form of heart disease. So again, hopefully I'm kind of rattling the cage a little bit, getting you to think, okay, well, if I am on this, what else can I do instead? What other options are there? Again, because if you're taking blood pressure medication and you have a heart condition and you're not taking care of yourself, if you're not exercising, if you're not eating good, and you're not healthy or have a healthy lifestyle, then you can't stop right now. I'm not telling you to do that. What I'm telling you is that now we have to look at the essentials. Now we have to look at lifestyle modifications so that when we do start getting healthy, the body doesn't actually necessarily need those, and we can move on, and you can actually reduce and maybe even get off some of those. And that would be the ideal goal. You don't want to rip or yank the rug out from under you, just so to speak. But the American Heart Association put out a statement last year, and they said that on average, if you're not smoking, maintaining a healthy weight, controlling blood sugar, blood pressure, and cholesterol, that you can add how many years?
10 years.
10 years to a person's lifespan. 10 years. Would anybody like to add an extra 10 years to your life expectancy? Bonus? I'm glad all of you said yes. so every once in a while, I'll get somebody who's like, no, I've had just about enough. But you know what? If you wanted to live out all the years that God had intended for you, when would be a good time to start getting healthy? Now. Yeah, you don't want to wait for a crisis. And again, as I said, half of you weren't here when I first started because I started early. But what I said in the beginning was, this whole pandemic that we've gone through this year, when you see people, the majority of the people who have not survived, tragically, had something called what? Comorbidities. What are comorbidities? It means they already had one or more diseases. What did they have? A heart condition, upper respiratory, diabetes. They were not healthy. And if it has taught us to look at anything through this whole pandemic, it's exposed the fact that we are sick. We are unhealthy as a country, as a nation, that we're not taking care of ourselves. And when a pandemic strikes, it takes out the weakest ones first. So this is what we need to learn. We need to embrace lifestyle modifications that help us keep us at our healthiest all the time, not just to reduce and get off the medications, but to maintain that as well. So losing 10 pounds can double your chances of normalizing your blood pressure. Did you know that? Losing 22 pounds reduces your heart attack risk by 75%. When's the last time you lost weight? Has anybody ever lost 10 pounds? How did you feel when you lost 10 pounds?
Great.
You felt great because your pants were looser. You felt lighter. It was easier to breathe. You had more energy. You looked in the mirror. You liked what you saw, right?
Yes.
But if you went to your doctor, what did they say? Keep up the good work. Your blood pressure is looking good. Your blood sugar is good. Your A1C is good. Everything is good. Keep up the good work. And they gave you a pat on your back. This is common sense. We know this. We see that all the time. But, you know, for some of us, it's easy to lose weight. And for others, it's not so easy. And I just want to let you guys know that, you know, we take care of people either way. You know, I can show you some little things, and we can hold your hand through that process and give you a guarantee that you're going to lose weight. So we have a special program that many of you are not even aware of, and I just wanted to share that with you very briefly.
Hello, my name is Tim Kennedy. In the first 40 days of this program, I lost 35 pounds, exactly where I wanted to be. I got off my blood pressure medicine, I got off my cholesterol medicine, and I got off my heartburn medicine. And I feel wonderful. Thank you.
So it's a 40-day program, basically, and you do these weigh-ins where we're basically not just helping you lose weight. The more important thing is targeting the fat, the abnormal fat, the visceral fat, the fat that's around your heart, your liver, your organs, making sure you maintain your muscle mass, making sure that you maintain your water mass, and that the only weight that you're losing is the fat, the abnormal fat. That's what needs to be characterized in terms of making sure that you get a good result with this. Anybody can lose weight. Anybody can you could starve yourself, eat very little, watch the scale go down. But really what you're losing is muscle and water. And because you're starving yourself, you're slowing your metabolism down in the process. So then when you start eating normally again, normal amounts of food with a slower metabolism, what happens? All the weight comes back. And then some. So in this program, what we do is we help you target the abnormal fat. We get you into fat burning. It's a metabolic correction program where we actually raise your metabolism. And then after that, we reset it so that you keep the weight off. And one of the ways that we do that is we give you a manual, and then we give you a journal so where you fill in, you know exactly what you're eating. We show you what to eat, the amount of quantities, what not to eat, so that you get your body into fat burning. You are eating less, but your body is actually living off of and incinerating, and it's burning its own fat. And you know, in addition to that, there are some supplements that help keep you in fat burning, and you know, you get these weigh-ins. So when you get weighed in, we can pretty much follow a graph in terms of how much fat you're losing, where your visceral fat is, how your metabolism is being raised, and we quantify all these little metrics, which I'm going to show you. Bottom line is you have a guarantee. If you don't lose at least 15 pounds in the 40 days that we do this, we put you through a second round or a second program at our expense. And we rarely have to do that. I've put over 2,000 people through this program very successfully. Many of them have lost well over 20, 25, 35 pounds like you've seen here.
Hi, my name is Carol Plevin, and I've been on the program for a little over 40 days, and I've lost 31 pounds, and I feel wonderful, without a doubt. Medicines, I've had to lessen on my cholesterol medication, and I just feel great, full of energy, and can't complain about anything. I'm ready for the next thing in life.
Thank you.
Yeah, the food plan is an anti-inflammatory food plan also. Very, very healthy. And once you learn how to do that, you're set for life. So these are the things that we measure when you step on the scale. There's a body composition analysis that we do. Take your shoes and socks off. It puts a very low level electrical impulse through all the tissues in your body. And fat, water, and muscle, they all have different densities. So the computer has an algorithm where it can separate everything and give you a reading of what your weight is, what your body mass index is. BMI is really important because you could be overweight, but if you're over 30 and you're obese, you're at the highest risk for cancer, diabetes, and heart disease. And we need to see that number coming down. Your fat percentage, what percentage of your body's mass is fat? 42%? Is that good? Well, that's where we need to see where you start, and then obviously making sure that that comes down. Your visceral fat rating. Anything over 12, highest risk for fatty liver disease. That's a serious, serious disease. Body water percentage, we make sure we maintain that. Your muscle mass, making sure you maintain that. And then your metabolic age. So this is really important because, like, if you're, let's say if you're 55 years old and your metabolic age rings up as 90, what does that mean?
You're gone.
You're in trouble. Yeah, you have the metabolism of a 90-year-old. So it doesn't matter how much weight you lose, with your metabolism going that slow, it's going nowhere fast. And if it does go anywhere, it's coming right back up, and it just keeps getting worse and worse. Your metabolism is everything that has to do with your body and internally inside every cell, organ, and tissue in your body. If you don't get to the cause, the source, and the root of that, the weight gain is the least of your issues. You start looking at diabetes and heart disease and toxicity and Alzheimer's and all these other conditions which come from one cause. And if there's one cause, guess what? There's one cure. And it starts with this. So if anybody wants to get one of these tests, just tell Deborah tonight, and she'll get you an appointment. Normally it's $99 for that time where we stand you on the scale. We have that consultation with you. We do the weigh-in and tell you if you're a candidate for the program. They'll tell you about the program. But it's only $27 if you make that appointment tonight. See Deborah before you leave tonight, and she can tell you a little bit about how to go about making an appointment there. All right, so I'm going to have my dynamic staff come up for just a moment, and just want to help me pass out a couple of awards here. And okay, so
You need my glasses?
yeah, you noticed, huh? I'm getting better at that. Called me out right in front of everybody. How could you do that? I'll never forget. All right. So perfect adjustment attendance. We have an award for somebody very special here tonight who is on the spot with every single adjustment, never, ever, ever misses an appointment, and getting great results. And we're really so honored and proud to be taken care of for you. Sarah Rueda, please stand up. Everybody give her a big hand, big round of applause. Yes. All right. Well, we had our opportunity to honor somebody special, and everybody here is special, and I want to thank each and every one of you for coming tonight, and I want to honor my team. Everybody give them a hand for all that they do. They are awesome, and I know you see them twice as much, and you love them twice as much as you do me, so make sure you hug them, give them a big hug before you leave tonight. All right, so here's what we need to do, because I don't see anybody dozing off. Oh, you guys are doing great. But I know the mind can only absorb what the sea can endure. So let's come and stand up. Put your hands on the person to your right, and put them on their shoulders. Yeah, and give it a little massage. Carlos, you're gonna have to back up. Okay, yeah, just get that stress out. Nice and easy, nice and gentle. Don't hurt your neighbor, love them. All right, a little karate chop. Get all that stress out. All right, good. All right, turn around and love your other neighbor. Turn around and love your other neighbor. All right, good. Squeeze. Get all that stress out. Wake them up. Still got a few more minutes here. Wake them up. Good. All right, karate chop. There you go. Awesome. All right, give yourselves a round of applause. All right, now, heads up here. We got some shirts coming. Heads up. All the way in the back. Whoa! All right. Good. So you got to pay attention. You don't want to get hit in the head. Yeah. All right, so here's my question. That is looking down into an artery. You see all that fluffy yellow custard-like stuff up there? You know what that is? Well, it's cholesterol, but, there's cholesterol all the way around. But you see one section in there is pretty nasty. Now, what has happened to that cholesterol? Something has happened to it. So, cholesterol does not cause coronary artery disease. It has more to do with what? Oxidized cholesterol. So what is oxidation? Well, did you ever cut open an apple and leave it on the counter there? What happens to it if you come back later? It turns brown. Yeah, oxygen gets to it, free radicals. Now inside your body that process happens and it causes something called inflammation. Everybody say that word? Inflammation. Inflammation is what causes arteriosclerosis. Inflammation is what closes those arteries down, not the cholesterol. Inflammation is what causes not just heart disease, it causes cancer. Inflammation is what is the bad effect from toxicity. So we have to look at not the cholesterol, we have to look at the factors that cause the what? Oxidation of the cholesterol, which causes the inflammation. So let's start with one thing called sugar. Sugar molecules attach themselves to LDL, the bad cholesterol, and they physically deform that. They physically deform the cholesterol, increasing free radical production and inflammation. So I want you to look at this as a cross-section of an artery. All right, so you have the artery down here. I want you to look at that. What do you see? You see plaque, see the narrowing of the artery, right? Now this person very well could be taking cholesterol medications. Maybe their cholesterol, their LDL, the doctor found this, and they're taking cholesterol drugs, and now they have their cholesterol numbers within normal limits, right? But you can see that they're still maybe having lots of sugar, bad fats, toxins, and they're still causing inflammation. Has it corrected the cause of the problem? Nope. This person here with the artery up top, they can in fact have a cholesterol of 300, 400. If your doctor showed you a blood test and you had a 300 level cholesterol, how would you feel? Honestly, how would you feel? You'd be freaked out. You'd be concerned. But if there was no inflammation, if your C-reactive protein was in normal limits, if there was no inflammation, if you had a healthy diet and you're exercising, would it make sense that you should be concerned? No, because the cause of heart disease, as per the New England Journal of Medicine, showed that what's the better predictor of a heart attack? High cholesterol or C-reactive protein? C-reactive protein, which is caused by the inflammation. If your inflammation markers are in normal range, you do not need to be concerned about an elevated cholesterol level. So this person up top, they could have that elevated cholesterol level, arteries are clean, hollow, right? The bottom, you could have cholesterol in normal range and still be at risk for a heart attack. Got that? So the more important thing is making sure that you're affecting what? The inflammation levels. So the first culprit that causes and drives inflammation is what? Sugar. Now I know a lot of us are attuned with the sugar toward diabetes, but we need to wrap our minds around this. The sugar is at the cause of every degenerative disease, heart disease, cancer, diabetes. It is the driver of every disease because it drives inflammation, and inflammation is what is the beginning of the end. Now, for purposes of what we're talking about tonight with heart disease, you can take note of this and see, well, yeah, I know the soda, the juice, and, you know, the Pop-Tarts and the Apple Jacks, and, you know, I know that's not good for me. But look a little deeper, and you'll see things like corn, which is not a vegetable. It's a what? A grain. You'll see, you know, like rice, bread, potatoes. You'll see things where it's, you know, insidious, hidden in tomato ketchup or, you know, spaghetti sauce. When you turn the label and you look and see the additives as far as these ingredients, if you're not reading the labels, you're missing this. Where it comes in the form of high fructose corn syrup, which is sugar on steroids. It's an exponential hit that you're getting. And this is where you need to be concerned with. You can't just like not take your cholesterol medication if you're not going to address this. Then you need to be concerned. If you're not addressing all these things, don't be fooled. Just because I showed you all this research and said, well, cholesterol this, cholesterol that, if you're not correcting these things, then, you know, you can't take the out on what I shared with you before. So we have to start reducing and then getting to the point where we can eliminate these things that drive inflammation. So white bread, is there any nutritional value to white bread? No, nobody should be eating white bread. Wheat bread, a little bit better, but we've got gluten in there, and we've got all types of constituents which are not healthy. Now, years ago, before modern processing, it might have been a little healthier, but you really need to pay attention to the gluten that they use when putting this together. And then rye might be a little bit better, but they still use gluten in that also. And then you have Ezekiel bread. Now, we're just going from worse to bad. There are gradations, but you eventually want to eliminate. But, you can make better choices from one to the next, right? If you can't go cold turkey, this is the projection. This is the process. White rice, you got brown rice, and then you got something like kasha. Kasha, which is, kind of like a plant-based pseudo grain, right? Buckwheat. So this would be the progression of, ugly to bad, right? So I'm encouraging you to make better choices if you're stuck somewhere at somebody's house for dinner, or at a church lunch, and you're limited in terms of your menu. Try to make better choices. Maybe they're serving white pasta, or maybe you go out to dinner, maybe you go to Olive Garden and you can get the whole wheat pasta or spinach-based pasta. At least if you get something plant-based, it's a better choice. Ideally, you want to get to the point where you can get off of all of it. Get off of all of it. Now, who am I talking to specifically? You who have high cholesterol. You who have high blood pressure. You who have a high A1C. You have a condition that needs to be taken seriously. And if you don't want to live on medications and be concerned about those side effects, then this is what needs to be addressed. We don't get to have our cheat day until we see the fruit of our labor, right? When you get that next report back and you want to celebrate, go out and have a piece of pizza, that's the time that we do that. But between now and then, if you're going to have shades of gray and it's not black and white, it just doesn't work very well. You see what I'm saying, guys? We have to, there can't be any shades of gray. It's got to be black or whites, and that's how we have to approach this. I'll give you another thing here, so concerning saturated fats. Saturated fat. What have we historically been told by our doctors to stay away from? Saturated fat. That coconut oil, that coconut, not good, right? The eggs, the butter, the bacon, the red meat. I wouldn't touch that with a 10-foot pole. Neither should you. Especially if you have a cholesterol problem, right? Stay away from it. That's what we were told in the early 80s. And then by the time the late 90s came, Time magazine put out a study and they shared all this new research that said, actually, it turns out that saturated fat does have some benefits. Turns out that saturated fat is the preferred fuel for your heart and your brain. Yeah. So if you want your heart to work better and your brain to work better, you need to have what? Saturated fats. American Journal of Clinical Nutrition in 2010 put out a study that ranged anywhere from 5 to 23 years. They followed people, 340,000 people. And here's what they said. Their statement was, intake of saturated fat was what? Not associated with an increased risk of coronary heart disease, stroke, or cardiovascular disease. The actual risk for heart disease was 19% lower in the group concerning the what? The highest amount of saturated fat. How in the world could that be? Well, look at a porterhouse steak, for example, which again, we've been told. Ooh, you can have it, but don't put that guilt aside. You should feel guilty. Well, look at what they say about a porterhouse steak. 51% of the fat in a porterhouse steak is what? Monounsaturated fat, which is the type of fat that you find in olive oil, olives, avocados, almonds. How many of you guys know that's healthy for you, right? 51% of a porterhouse steak. How about that? Saturated fat constitutes 45% of the total fat, but a third of that is stearic acid, which will actually increase your HDL, your good cholesterol, have no effect on the LDL. Did you know that? Okay, so have at it. Have your saturated fat, but just make sure that it's what? It's good quality. You know, make sure you find yourself good, organic, grass-fed, quality beef if you're going to have that, cage-free, organic, eggs. You know, just make sure that you're buying good quality products, and you'll get the healthy benefits that we're talking about tonight, the heart healthy benefits that we're talking about, right? So the bottom shows you the closed artery. When we want to go to an open artery, we want to go to heart health, what do we have to do? We have to make a lateral transition and do less of what's on the left and more of what's on the right. So you have your hydrogenated oils, your rancid vegetable oils, your trans fats, all that stuff in the baked goods, that all causes inflammation. That will all oxidize the cholesterol in your arteries, in your heart, throughout your body. So you have to get off that stuff, get to the good fats. Less of the bad fats, more of the good fats. And then also, not just the sugars, but the grains. Anything that turns to sugar will also physically modify glucose, will also cause inflammation and affect that LDL. So we want to have less of those grains. You see that on the left? I always talk about what is better referred to as the paleo diet. I don't really get hung up on the name, but really what it comes down to is what? Proteins, fruits, vegetables, and good fats. What do you not see in this picture on the right that you see on the left? Grains. Yeah, the grains. What does that tell you? If you want to start living a healthy lifestyle, if you want to stay off medications, go to doctor's offices less, avoid going to hospitals, this is the direction that we have to approximate. So I know many of you are already on that path, but I also know that nobody's perfect, including myself. That's why I can say that, because I know I'm not perfect, and I know there's not one person in here who cannot stand improvement. Right or right? We all can. So this is what we need to take inventory on when you go shopping. Are you reading the labels? When you go home tonight and you open the pantry, read the labels. Are you going gluten-free? Are you reducing and eliminating the carbohydrates, the sugars? You know, are you having the good fats? These are all the things that's why it's so important to come back to workshops every month so you can learn more and more. Right now it's like drinking out of a fire hydrant, right?
Yeah.
Come back next month. We're going to talk more. You'll get it. All right, so in the morning it's hard to have a good breakfast without jacking your blood sugar and blowing the whole day. And that's what I like about the shake. Now, I have this shake every morning after I work out. A big part of it is because it's got 26 grams of protein in it. And when you're trying to build muscle, you know, you'll do anything once you get over 50, once your testosterone levels start plummeting. You need protein to build muscle. So that's why I like this. There's 26 grams of protein in it, but it's also a multi-spectrum vitamin. It's got like every vitamin in it. It's got a low-level detox in it. And these are things, again, that are anti-inflammatory. It's got anti-inflammatory nutrition in it. It also has a cytokine balance, which helps to reduce inflammation. And it's also got a gut balance in it, which is addressing the health of the flora as far as your digestion, which is also important for your immune system. But most importantly, for purposes of our discussion, it keeps your blood sugar level. So after you take 2 scoops of this, and this morning I mixed it with half water and half hazelnut milk. Or you can have almond milk, or you can have coconut milk. I like to have a little bit of water, it mixes easier with it. And I just take 2 scoops and I put it in there. But also on the side, I'll have a plate of berries. I had raspberries, blueberries, strawberries, blackberries. Yep, you can do all the berries, and a scoop of almond butter, a tablespoon of almond butter. And that is the breakfast of champions. That will keep your blood sugar stable. It will keep you in fat burning. It will keep your inflammation levels down, and it will keep you energized, and you won't be hungry because you'll have all your good fat in there. And you're not going to get sleepy later because your blood sugar won't tank because it doesn't go up. Now that's a big contrast from somebody who has Pop-Tarts or cereal or even oatmeal. You know, anything with grains provokes a blood sugar spike, an insulin spike, so for some people more than others, and then what goes up has to come down. That's why these shakes are so good and so important for many of you with so many different health conditions. Even if you don't have a health condition, it's a great thing to try and see how your energy levels are. It's quick, it's easy, and it also saves you money because this is a breakfast substitute. Now you can have it for lunch, you could have it as a meal replacement any day, anytime during the day, but that's when I have it. Here's another supplement that will help you with your blood pressure, and it also not only supports healthy blood pressure, but also elasticity of the arteries. It's something called Perfusia SR. Now, it has something called L-arginine, which is the precursor for nitric oxide. Nitric oxide is what the body uses to contract smooth muscle, and there's smooth muscle inside the artery wall. So when it contracts, it actually opens up the circumference of the inside of the artery, and that has an effect, a good effect, on your blood pressure. So for many of you with heart conditions, this is an important supplement that will help support heart health in your case. Vitamin D is important, we know that, not just for immune function. We've been talking about that. Everybody's been talking about that with COVID, so everybody should know how important it is. A minimum of 5,000 international units per day. What I am finding now, even true for myself, that it's not 5,000 international units anymore. It's really closer to 10. Now, you wouldn't know that unless you have a vitamin D test, and you can actually get that value. Like I was taking 5,000 international units for 3 years, and my numbers came out at 48, which is normal but not optimal. Optimal for vitamin D should be 70 or over. If you want to reduce your risk of death from COVID to 0, and you want to reduce your risk of all cancers by 50%. Oh, I'm sorry, no, let me retract that, let me correct that. You can reduce your risk of 50% of all cancers to nearly 0 if your vitamin D level is 70 or over. So, it's one thing if your doctor tells you that your vitamin D level is normal. If you're happy with it being 30 or 40, that's fine. But I know for me and for most of my patients, we don't want normal, we want ideal, optimal, right? And that's how you eliminate the guesswork from a lot of these conditions. Now, for purposes of tonight, we're talking about cardiovascular health. Very, very important. We know that people who have the lowest vitamin D levels are at the highest risk for heart disease. So that's important. CoQ10, necessary molecule for all cellular function, in particular heart health. And if you are one of those people or you have a loved one who's on statin medications, this is an absolute must. Because remember what I said, the statin meds, they strip the CoQ10 out of the cells. You have to have this, it needs to be replenished. It's an absolute requirement if you're taking statin medications. You have to be on this. And then EPA, DHA, so these fish oil capsules, natural anti-inflammatory, which is important to correct the conditions that we're talking about, prevents blood clots, triglycerides, promotes growth of new blood vessels. So if you've got blockage of blood vessels, how many of you guys have ever heard a story of somebody who just got caught in time? They checked the carotid artery, they checked the arteries in the heart. Doctor said it was 90% blocked. Caught it just in the nick of time, saved their life, right? I went to school, I learned about this stuff. And your body's not stupid, it's very smart. When arteries get clogged up, your body wants to survive, it finds a way. It's something called anastomosis. And what that means is that it grows new arteries. It finds new way to oxygenate, new pathways it grows to oxygenate tissues that would otherwise be blocked off by blocking of those arteries. Remember, there's always, your body's not stupid, it's smart. And this helps to promote that, the fish oil capsules. Prevents arrhythmia, helps your blood pressure. So these are all important, right? So the supplement suite, whenever we do this, we discount the supplements at the workshops only. If you get all of them, everything that we're talking about, we give you the biggest discount, which is 15%. If you only need a few here and there, they're 10%. There's limited quantities, so everybody usually always wants them, and we don't have enough for everybody. So make sure before you leave, see them up front, and they'll get you what you need. Here's another way to get a discount. Write us a 5-star review. How many of you guys read reviews before you go somewhere or you go to a restaurant or buy something? Reviews are important, aren't they? You see people ask for reviews all the time. Just had somebody come in last week. They called up and we said, how'd you hear about us? Well, my husband was reading all your wonderful reviews. And that's why I'm making an appointment. Guess what? Some of you sitting in this room right now, they read your review. And you changed somebody's life because you wrote that. Isn't that awesome? You didn't have to do it. You just read something nice, and you literally have no idea how far-reaching that goes to help people. So I covet that. I mean, that is awesome. I love that. And if anybody else would be willing to do that, we give you the extra 25% off of whatever it is. Whatever it takes, I don't care. That's how important it is to reach people in the community who need chiropractic care, and they don't know there's an answer. And that's just one way that you can make a difference. So I appreciate that. All right, so finishing up with heart rate variability. And does anybody know what heart rate variability is? No? Okay. Well, heart rate variability is something that measures your autonomic nervous system. What does autonomic mean? Automatic. There's a part of your nervous system that's automatic. Carlos, what's making your heart rate go so slow right now? Or if I lunged at you and did a Superman, what would make it elevate, right? If a bear was chasing you, how would you have the juice to run for your life? Through your autonomic nervous system. So the autonomic nervous system, there's two parts to it. One part elevates your heart rate, speeds up your respiration, digestion. It's for short-term survival. And then there's another part that slows everything down for rest, relaxation, recovery, long-term survival. These two parts of your nervous system should be operating in good balance. When they're in balance, your body can handle stress better. It's in a ready state. Raise your hand if you have stress. Say aye. Okay. Some of you don't have stress. I don't believe you. We all have stress. But how an individual responds to the stress, usually we find how it takes a toll on their health, right? You ever seen somebody have a heart attack, right? Most of the time, it's because of the stress that they're under. A lot of people who are hospitalized, who died from COVID, most of the time it was from the stress that they're under that pushed them over the edge. It affects your blood sugar, it affects your heart rate, it puts you at risk for a heart attack, it lowers your immune system, increases your risk of cancer. Now, if your nervous system is in balance, guess what? It can handle that stress better. It doesn't affect your physical body as much. Is this making sense?
Yeah.
So this is why heart rate variability is, in some cases, studies are showing it's even more important than your cholesterol and your CRP and even your blood pressure in terms of knowing what's happening with your heart. So research published in 2004 showed that people with ischemic heart disease, where it seizes up, the blood vessels close down, the heart goes into cardiac arrest. When you get to that point, on average, they found it's a third lower than that of a healthy individual, the parasympathetic activity. That parasympathetic activity is needed for rest and recovery, to relax the heart. But in that 2004 study, they found that it was inactive, a third of the time, inactive, on average, a third lower. In order for you to have a heart attack, they found that you must experience both a drastic decrease in parasympathetic activity and an increase in what? Sympathetic activity. So when people are sympathetic dominant, fight or flight, under stress, go, 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 not enough sleep, taking on too much, spinning too many plates, not taking a vacation, right? Not knowing when to quit. Sympathetic dominant, that's when the heart clocks out. And their parasympathetic is uninvolved. You know what chiropractic adjustments do? They what?
Neutralize.
Stimulate the parasympathetic. And they stimulate rest and recovery. That's why you walk out of here so relaxed after you get adjusted. And that's why people who are under chiropractic care long term, on average, they take less medications, they go to doctors less, they get sick less, and they go to hospitals less. And that's what studies show because of the effect that it has on the sympathetic nervous system. 75% of myocardial ischemic events are triggered by the autonomic nervous system. With every adjustment that you get as a patient of mine, what is it doing to your autonomic nervous system? It's what? Bringing it more in balance, reducing your risk of heart attack, stroke, cancer, COVID, and so on and so forth. And the longer you do it, the bigger the returns on that investment. Right?
Yeah.
So that's what effect chiropractic has on your autonomic nervous system. So I want to share this with you. The video quality isn't the best, but this sums it up.
High blood pressure can be a pain in the neck. Now some doctors are trying to find out whether a chiropractic adjustment might not only straighten your spine, but also help hypertension.
Healthcare reporter Sylvia Perez here to explain. Sylvia? Kathy and Ron, many people with high blood pressure would like to find a way to avoid taking medication. A trip to the chiropractor may seem like an unlikely alternative, but an intriguing study is showing that a special kind of neck adjustment is helping some patients lower their blood pressure without drugs. What makes your blood pressure boil? Stress? Too much salt? Lack of exercise? Bad genes? No one's really sure about the cause, but here's something new to consider that might raise the eyebrows of some conventional doctors. Could it be an issue with the top of your spine?
They took x-rays and showed me that my neck was out of alignment.
Denise Neiman went to a specific chiropractor for pain in her neck. After having a special adjustment, that pain was gone, and so was something else.
My blood pressure dropped tremendously.
Other patients were reporting the same positive but surprising side effect. Dr. George Backers, the hypertension expert at the University of Chicago Medical Center, decided to find out if there really was some kind of connection.
We designed a double-blind study to really look and see if, in fact, this procedure was affecting blood pressure.
25 patients got the real adjustment, 25 others got a fake adjustment. The result published in the Journal of Human Hypertension found those patients who got the real thing saw their blood pressure drop dramatically, an average of 17 points. That's equivalent to giving patients 2 different blood pressure medications at once.
So it's pretty significant.
Your upper body's off to the left 2 degrees.
So why would straightening the top of the spine affect blood pressure?
It came completely back to center.
Marshall Dickholt Sr. and Jr. say they know why. The father and son chiropractors believe this area of the spine, called the C1 vertebra, or atlas, operates as the fuse box to the body. If it's twisted and out of whack, arteries and nerves at the base of the brain might get compressed, and that could affect blood flow and nerve signals.
It affects your autonomic, not only your central nervous system, but your autonomic nervous system.
Wow, affects your autonomic nervous system. So here's a question for you. When you lay down, and I move your earlobe out of the way here, take your temperature, move your earlobe out of the way here, what am I looking for? I'm checking the balance. I'm checking the atlas. Very good, Bruce. So why am I checking the temperature from one side to the other? I want to see if it's balanced or out of balance. If it's out of balance, if it's off balance, that means you're out of autonomic balance. And that's based on what you just learned right now. That's not a place we want to be, is it? No. When do you want that fixed? As soon as possible. Yeah. Because you don't know what kind of stress you're going to have today or next week or whatever the case is. You want to make sure that your nervous system is clear and it can handle as much stress, and your body is well suited to adapt to its environment under all conditions. How many of you guys want to be at 100% of what God created you to be and not 1% less? That's why I don't let you get off the table, regardless of where your neck or your back hurts. The bigger picture is not just that you feel better, that your body functions at peak potential. You saw they showed the circuit breaker, right? You know, when you walk into a house, you may see a light bulb off here and there, but you're not just going to check one breaker. You're going to what? You're going to check all of them. So what we're talking about tonight in this top part of the neck has to do with blood pressure. It can cause headaches, nervousness, insomnia, tiredness, dizziness. It affects your ears, your eyes. You know, but the further you go down the spine, you see that there's a place of the spine that affects everything in the body. And if there's a blockage there, if those circuits are blown, you may not feel it right away, but if it remains uncorrected, it's only a matter of what? Time. And then we come up with these health problems and we go to the doctor, and the doctor doesn't look for the cause, the source of the root. They just treat the what? The effect with drugs. Yeah. So that's why we check the circuit breaker and make sure the power is on. And then your body takes care of itself. So how do we do that? Well, when you come in, you know, we look at your thermography. We do a thermal scan, right? Sarah, you did that today. Remember we did that thermal scan? What did that show? It showed a heat reading. And then in addition to that, we check range of motion, palpation, posture, and we look at all these things. And, you know, Sarah came in just for a preventative checkup today. She really didn't have much in the way of problems, so to speak. But as we got more and more through the examination, we were like, oh, look at this, look at that. A lot of red up there in the upper part of the neck. Hey, come to think about it, you know what, I have been having more headaches. Come to think about it, you know, I do have this thing with my ear, I get this sharp pain. Like, you never know what you're going to learn by thoroughly evaluating your nervous system if you've never had that done. Now, some of you may have issues you need to get checked, but some of you, you have family members, you have friends. How important is your nervous system? Does it control some parts of the body or all parts of the body? Yeah. You have doctors, when you go to them every year, they check everything, but what's the one system that they don't check? Your nervous system. So at some point, isn't it a good idea to have this thing checked at least once in a blue moon? So that's why I always, like, if you're a guest here tonight, I always offer this invitation. You come in if you would like me to evaluate you. I do a consultation, get a history, we'll do an examination, and then we'll do a thermal scan. And if there's a complaint or if there's not a complaint, we use the thermography and we use the testing to determine whether or not we need x-rays. And then we take all of these tests and we tie it all together and we figure out what you need or what you don't need. And that gives us a good, clear picture into what's been happening and how things are developing, for better or worse. So that's what I always say. You know, if you knew you were going to be developing a problem a year, 5, 10 years from now, when would you want to know? Now. Yeah, preventative. How much more valuable is it to find and correct the cause of disease now than to be treating it later, right? So that's why we do this. I always start with the end in mind, and prevention is really the only cure. Prevention is really the only cure. So if you're a guest here, I want to offer you that. Normally the consultation, the exam, even the x-rays, normally it's about $360 or so. But on behalf of the person who referred you in tonight, who brought you here, we do that for only $97. And we rarely include the x-rays with that, but that includes, it's all encompassing, it includes everything. So just mention that to one of my staff members tonight, and they will honor that for you tonight only. And I'm happy to do that, and it'll be a pleasure to meet you and greet you. All right, so wrapping up for tonight, making application with what you've learned. Make sure you put next month, if you got a handout, write the date down for the cancer prevention workshop. Supplements are first come, first serve. As I said, we don't have enough for everybody, but the discounts are for tonight only. And then if you need to make a...
I'm having a problem with the connection. Please try again in a little bit.
I'm having a problem with Siri. I'm having a problem with Siri. Hello, Siri. So make your appointments for if you need to make a weigh-in for the weight loss or the C-reactive protein like we talked about. If you need testing with that, let them know. Or a new patient examination. Whatever you need, see them at the front desk tonight before you go, and they'll know how to help you. Thank you so much for joining me tonight, guys. I love and appreciate you. God bless.